Okay, Richard Halverson here. This is ICS321, and today is September 18th, Wednesday, and I'm sitting here in my office here in 303G Post Building, and I've just posted assignment one, the first assignment. It's a pretty long assignment, and you have a long time to do it. I thought I'd post it early though, and kind of go over it a little bit. So let me share my screen. And I think I'm going to probably share this first screen here. Okay, here we go. And so I have my, I have La Lima up here and show system. So yeah. So we're in ICS 321, and if we look at the overview, we are someplace down here, we're in chapter 4. I'm giving you assignment 1 right now, and we're going to get into chapter 10 SQL tables next week. But so this is an assignment where we're creating SQL tables, and then we're going to write a bunch of SQL statements. And we're going to learn about the SQL statements over the next couple weeks after this. Maybe the assignment is not due till the 19th of October. So let's look at the assignment. It's posted here, and it's called It's called Golden Glory. Okay. So let me make this a little bigger. And it's due the 19th of October, and I'll accept resubmission until this day here. What I've done is I've given everybody an SQL server. And so first what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to sign in, log into your SQL server. And this is something that you can do to make sure that when you go to it on the web, it always defaults to HTTPS. It's not that important to do that, but you can do it if you want to. This is how you do it. And then I'll get into the assignment a little bit. There's 2 parts to the assignment. The first part is simply creating this database, and it's got a few tables here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tables, and some pictures here. And I actually give you, down at the bottom here, I give you the SQL to load up into the table. So you don't have to type this data in, but you have to create the table first. You have to create it so it will accept the SQL. And then after that, there are a bunch of SQL statements that I'd like you to write. And we'll go over all of these. So this is just giving you a heads up on what's coming. But I'll go over each one of these with you and help you out. And we can work through these together. You can also find a partner and work on these assignments with somebody else. I don't want, I'm going to set up something. I'm going to do that this weekend. I'm going to set up a form where you're going to just enter these SQL statements, because I'm actually working on a system to support or to automate partial grading of this assignment. And so this is going to be a good test case for me, and so I'd like you to enter them into a particular form. It'll be similar to a Google form, but right now you can spend your time getting this database set up. So let's go over this. You have a web server. It's your uhusername.ics321.com. For example, my UH username is Richard H. So this is what mine is. I can open this up in a new link, and it should actually, I actually have a alias here, so I've got so many Richard H accounts on this server. Okay, so when you go to it, it's going to look like this, it's just a blank web page, and you have to go to cPanel. That's where you can get to the back end and get to your control panel for your web server. And so it looks like this. Let's see what happens when I hit this. Okay, I get the same thing. Let me here. So you log in, it looks like this, and you enter in your username, which is your UH username, and your password is your last name, the first letter of your last name capitalized, the first letter of your last name capitalized, followed by the first letter of your first name not capitalized, followed by your 8-digit UHID, followed by these 3 characters. So mine is, for example, capital H, lowercase r, and then my UHID, and then, which is 8 digits, you have an 8-digit UHID, followed by this %, hashtag, exclamation point. And so that's what is typed in here. And you log in, and you can save it if you want to. And so your cPanel is going to look like this. You got a file manager here. You got databases here. You got some other stuff you can look at, set up email accounts, whatever. You can check all this stuff out if you want to. If you purchase purchase a website on HostGator or Bluehost or any one of these hosting companies, even Amazon that has cPanel, you can get cPanel, and it looks just like this. All right, so so I've logged in, and so if you want, you can set up the secure server default, and what you're doing is you create an htaccess file, and inside the htaccess file you can put these 3 statements, these 3 commands. So I'm going to copy these, and I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to go to my file manager, and I'm going to go into public_HTML right here, double click, and this is my web page. I can make a hello world page in here if I want to. If we look at the index of it, see there's the CGI bin directory, and that's that. And so I'm going to create a folder, a new file, and I'm going to name it .htaccess. .htaccess. Create a new file. It exists already. Okay, let's look and see what it looks like. The reason I can't see it is because we don't have this set up to see hidden files. So to do that, I got to click the settings up here, and I want to look at show hidden files. There it is, save. And oh, there already is an htaccess file there. Let me look and see what it is. Today at 2:12. Okay, let me see what it looks like. Click on it. Click edit. Edit. Setting up for PHP. Well, anyway, I still should be able to add this in here. I'm going to do a paste right here. Paste. And so those are there. I hope this works. Okay, save changes. And now if I just choose to go to, let me pull up another browser here. If I just go to rjchardh.ics321.com, enter, and it automatically defaults. As you can see, the lock is there. It automatically defaults to HTTPS. All right, cool. So now let's go back to the assignment. And we have this assignment here, and the problem is it was adapted by this old textbook I used to use. Garden. Oh, did I just put golden? I wonder why I did that. Garden glory. What was I? Golden glory. What was I thinking? Let me. I'm just gonna fix it right now, if you don't mind. It's called Garden Glory. Garden. A-R-D, and garden. That's funny. Garden. A-R-D-E. Garden Glory. Garden Glory Part 2. A-R-D. All right, let me save this. Okay, that's better. Garden Glory Assignment Part 1. Okay, Garden Glory is a lawn service. Assume that Garden Glory designs a database with the following tables. Each table's fields are in parentheses. Underlined fields are primary keys. Italicized fields are foreign keys. So we've got 5 database tables, or 5 relations. You can think of them that way. We've got an owner relation, an owned property relation, Garden Glory service relation, employee relation, and a property service relation. And these are the attributes. And these are the primary keys right here for each of these relations. And it looks like we've got some foreign keys here. Foreign keys. All right, and this is what the data looks like. So we've got some owners here, Mary Jones, whatever. Got some properties. And who owns them? That's this owner ID here. And we've got some employees and some services and some property service table when things were done. All right, so we're going to implement this database, and I've given you some parameters here. I'd like you to define all character fields using varchar and variable length characters. I'd like the zip code to be able to account for leading zeros. That means it cannot be an integer. It's got to be a varchar. Got to be characters. Define keys as integers. Define the hours and the cost as decimal numbers with 2 decimal points. Dates should be the date type. And phone numbers should be stored as shown. You notice they've got some hyphens in there. And the referential integrity constraints are this, where owned property must exist in owner ID. So in other words, you can't have any, you can't have an owned property in here linking off to an owner that doesn't exist. And you can't have property ID and property service must exist. In the property service table, you need to have, if it's referring to a property and a property ID, that property has got to exist. The service has got to exist in the service relation, and the employee ID has to exist in the employee table. Okay, so that justifies the referential integrity. And then we're going to use these surrogate keys for the primary keys, and all of these will become clear if you haven't gotten that far in the textbook yet. I think you maybe have, but if you haven't, these will become clear very soon. And so all we have to do in this part 1 is we get to create the database, make sure it's named exactly as stated above, implement the foreign key constraints for the relationships, and make your own assumptions about updates and deletes. I'll talk more about that when I do it. And execute this MySQL script attached to populate the database. So let's get started. I'm going to open up. I'm going to go back to, let me close this. I'm going to go back to my cPanel here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on MySQL databases. And so I'm going to create a new database here. Let's see, here's the instructions. The database database is called golden_glory. I'm going to set this aside here. Okay, so I'm going to create a new database called, not golden glory, garden glory. Garden_glory. Garden glory. So that's my new database. Click create database. Go back. And so now I have a database here called Garden Glory. I don't need to worry about users yet or anything. We'll worry about that later. Let's go back to my cPanel. And now I can click on this phpMyAdmin here. And now I'm in my database management system, web-based here. So here's my database here on the left. I'm going to click on it. And we see that it has no tables. The tables will be listed here. And so I'm going to start creating some tables here. The first thing I'm going to create is, let's see, let me do something where I can see both. Get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of this. Let me put this back up. And I'm going to put this over here like this. This. Put this up here, and I'm going to take this and put this down over here. And basically, I just want to be able to see this line right here. Start with this owner ID here, right there. Okay. Owner ID. So let's create a new table. Let's see, how do we do that? Name. Let's name it owner. O-W, capital O-W-N-E-R. Try to make it exactly the same. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. Go. And the first one is going to be owner ID. And it's going to be an integer, and that's fine. And let me pop this over there. Integer is fine. And over here, let me see. Oh, it's going to be primary key, and it's going to be auto increment. Auto increment. That's what this stands for. Auto increment. That's our surrogate key, and each time we add a new record, a new owner in there, it's going to automatically increment that owner ID, and so we'll always have a unique primary key for each owner. The next one is going to be owner name, and I'm going to make that a varchar 50. It's fine, big name. The next one is going to be owner email, and that can also be varchar 50, probably enough. And owner type, O-W-N-E-R type. And what does owner type look like? It's just a character string, so I'm going to make this a 20 character string. That's fine. A 20 varchar 20. All right, and none of these can be null. Let's make it so none of them can be null. And the storage engine, we want to have it be an INNODB. The reason we want INNODB is because that storage engine will enforce referential integrity when you've set it up. This other one that's default, this MyISAM, that does not enforce referential integrity. Why would you not want to force referential integrity? Well, it's more expensive to enforce referential integrity, and referential integrity might be something that you want to enforce in the beginning when you're just defining your database. But after you got everything working, and everything works right, and you're interested in speed, then you can switch from INNODB to MyISAM, and it should perform faster. All right, but for now we'll do INNODB, and let me save this. Okay, now we've got a table here, nice table. Let's go back to the database itself, and we see the table listed here. Let's create the next one, which is owned property. So let's create a new table. New table. Here we go, new table. Owned, capital, old, O-W-N-E-D, underscore property. Owned property, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Make it 8. Go. And the first one is going to be property ID. Property ID, integer, primary key, auto increment. And the next one is going to be property name. Let's make that a varchar 50. And the next one is going to be property type. And what is property type? Let's look and see some examples. Oh, it's just another character string. I'll make that 20 characters probably. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16. So I'll make it 25 characters. Varchar 25 characters. And what's next? Street. And that can be a varchar 50, whatever. That's the street address. The next one can be a city. That can be a varchar 20. Next is state. That can be a varchar 2. The next one is zip code. Zip. And let's make it look just like the way we have it here. And that can be a varchar, let's make it a varchar 10 in case we decide to do a 9-digit zip code. And it doesn't matter, let's do owner ID. And that's going to be an integer. And it's also, because it's going to be a foreign key, we have to index it. So to index it, we go over here and we select index. So we're going to make an index for it. And we're going to make this an INNODB. All right, save. And now we've got a second table here. Let's go move on. And what's next? We're going to make a third table called GG service. So let's go here, new table called caps GG underscore service. And that's going to have 1, 2, 3. And so the first one is going to be service ID. That's going to be an integer. It's going to be a primary key auto increment. And the next one is going to be service description. Let's make that a varchar. Let's make it longer. Let's make it 200 in case they want to get elaborate. And let's make this cost per hour. And let's make that a decimal. And the decimal is, there's two parameters for the decimal type. The first one is the total number of digits, and so let's make it like 9. And then the second comma is going to be the number of digits to the right of the decimal point. So 9, 2 is a good, nice big number. And we're going to make this INNODB. And let's save this. And let's go back to the database. And we got another table here called employee. And so let's call it employee. And that's going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the first one is going to be employee ID. and that's going to be a primary auto incrementing field. And the next one is going to be last name. Can be varchar, I don't know, 50. Next field can be first name, varchar 50. Those are pretty big names, doesn't matter. Cell phone, got some hyphens in there. Let's make it varchar, I don't know, 3, 4, 7, 10, plus a couple of, let's make it 16. 15 is fine. And the last one is experience level. And that's just a varchar, I think 20 or so. Let's see what employees. Yeah, senior, master, senior, junior, master, senior. Okay, that's fine. And we're going to make that an INNODB. And we're going to save. And we got one more table here. This is property service. Property underscore service. And that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fields. Okay. The first field is property service ID. It's an integer, primary auto increment, service. The second one is property ID, and that's an integer and it's an index. It's a foreign key, so we got to make this an index. And the third one is service ID, and that is also an index. It's a foreign key into the GG service. Single, create single ones. And the next one is service date, and that can be just a date field. And the next one is employee ID, and that's an integer, and that is a it's a foreign key into the employee table. And the last one is hours worked. And let's make that the working partial hours, make that a decimal. And what kind of examples do they have for hours worked? Okay, it's 2.75. Okay, so we'll make it decimal 9, 2. And make this as an INNODB. And save. Okay. And so it looks like we've created all of the tables. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we want to set up these. We've done varchars, reasonable zip should be leading zeros. It will define keys as integer. Hours and cost can be decimal with 2 decimal points. Date should be date. Phone numbers can be stored as shown. Referential integrity constraints. Okay, so we have to make sure that when there's a foreign key, it refers to or it references a record in a table that does exist. So the way to do that is, first of all, let's just go one by one. The foreign key, so let's start. The owner ID and owned property must exist in owner ID owner. Okay, so owned property. Okay, this is owned property. And if you click on structure for owned property, and we click up here, relation view, we have that we don't need to fill in anything for a constraint name. It will fill in a name for us. And on delete, we want to, let's restrict, delete. Let's if we try to delete an owned property, no, if we try to delete an owner, and this owned property is, refers to it, okay, this is, I believe this is how I do it. I'm going to start this now. This is on update, on restrict, okay. It's the column is owner ID, this database, table, owner ID. Okay, so foreign key constraint. So we've got a owner ID is a foreign key into this column. Okay, so save this. Okay, I think I'm doing this right. I get them mixed up where you actually connect to which, but so that's owner property. What else do we have here? Property ID in property service. Okay, property service. So let's go to go back here, and let's go to property service, and we go to structure, and we go to relation view, and leave these restrict, and we should have that employee ID links to, in the employee table, employee ID, and the property ID goes to property, and property service ID, that's in this table, so doesn't go anywhere. Service ID goes to GG service ID. Okay, I think that's it. Employee, property ID, service ID. So we have, this goes over to property, owned property, this goes over to GG service, this goes over to employee ID. And so property ID and property service, service ID, service, and okay. Are there any other ones? Let's see, let me go back up here again. Owner ID, I did that one, and I did this one, and this one, and this one. Okay, so I think I have everything. I think I've set this up right. And so I'm going to now try to implement the foreign key constraints. I did that, make your own assumptions. Okay, so I just restricted the deletions. I restricted the updates too, that's fine. And then I'm going to execute the script. So let me download the script. Here it is. I'm going to click on it, and I'll save the file on the desktop. So here it is. Let me open it up. Doesn't matter what I open it in. Here it is. And it's a bunch of insert statements. And there's inserting owner data, inserting property data, We've got to insert the owners, insert the properties, insert the employees. Then we can start inserting, insert the service, and then we can insert something that connects the properties to the property service. The property service is going to be connected to the property and the GG service and the employee. The property is owned by an owner, I see. So first we got to put the owners in there. And then once they're all in there, then we can start putting these properties in there, because the properties are going to refer to owners. And we can't put a property in there, we can't link it to an owner that doesn't exist. So that's why owners have to go in first. And then properties can go in there because all the owners are in there. And then once the owners and the properties are in there and the employees are in there, you got to put them in there too. Then we can put the rest of these in there. So the order looks correct. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to select this whole thing, copy, and I'm going to go back to my database here. And it doesn't really matter where I do this. I just got to open up an SQL window. It doesn't matter. Right now I'm sort of I am in the property service data. Let's go out to the database. Here's the five tables, all INNODB. And so let me open up an SQL window. I'm just going to click SQL here. And I'm going to paste what I just copied. Do Control V. And here it is. There's the inserts for the property service, for the GG service. Should I make this a little bigger? GG service, owned property. Okay, so let me just execute this. Go. And it's all green. All these were inserted. Very good. So let's go back to our database, and we see now there are these records here. That looks nice. And let's see what they look like. They should look like this. This is what the owner table should look like. Let's see what the owner table looks like. Looks pretty good. I'm going to see if I can make this a little smaller. Okay, the owner table, Mary Jones. That looks all good. Individual. Okay, and what's next? The next table is the owned property table. This a little smaller. Owned property table. So if we go back here, I can go over here, owned property. Looks pretty good. East Lake office, East Lake owner ID 2, and so on. And next we have employee table. Let's see what the employee table looks like. Employee and Smith, Evanston, Murray, Murphy. That looks pretty good. And we've got the GG service, mow lawn, plant annuals, weed garden, trim hedge, prune small tree, and so on. And we have the property service table, which looks like this. You notice with this INNODB that these little foreign keys are links. So if we click on employee ID here, we click on the 1 here, it takes us to employee number 1. All right, so now let's test these constraints. All right, so if in property service, I'm referring to employee ID number 1. So that means if I go over here and I try to delete employee ID number 1, delete, it doesn't let me do it. Cannot delete or update a parent row. A foreign key constraint fails. So it tells you why you can't do it. If I wanted to delete, this row here, I'd have to first make sure that this property ID, that this property is gone. I have to make sure that's gone. I'd have to make sure the service is gone, deleted out, and I'd have to make sure that the employee is deleted out. So that's these foreign key constraints, these integrity constraints. It forces you to do things right. Don't delete anything that's still being referenced, and it maintains the integrity of the database. Okay, so that should take care of the first part of assignment 1, and next week we will cover the rest of assignment 1. But you should be able to get started with this now. All right, thanks for watching.